Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, December 9th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Dan Rubin in just a moment. Buckeyes now know their situation for the college football playoff. We're going to get into all of that. What do we think of the matchup against Tennessee? Buckeyes getting a chance to host a playoff game. If they manage to win, their prize is a rematch against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. We'll get into all that. We'll even talk about how Penn State was able to back their way into a absolute sweetheart of a draw. Before we do all that, I'll let you guys know about our friends over at Mando. I love Mando, as I've been telling you guys. We've got a great deal so you guys can check it out yourself. Mando was developed by a doctor. It gives you 72-hour odor control. If you've been using the same deodorant like I had been for years, it might be time to try something new, something better. That's where Mando comes into play. And Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers or to secure some last-minute stocking stuffers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant. I love the cream tube deodorant. I'm a customer now. They sent us a free little box, and then I used that, and then I went and bought one of my own. So big fan of the cream tube deodorant. You also get 2 free products of your choice and free shipping with the starter pack. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code Bucknuts. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. And use that code Bucknuts for free shipping. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. All right. No one ever has to boost Dan Rubin's confidence. I tell you what, I know some Ohio State fans are upset. My thing is, don't lose to Michigan at home when Michigan's terrible and you're favored by 21, and you come in with a horrible offensive game plan. And then even worse than that was the 0 adjustments of that horrible offensive game plan. It's still sickening. So, hey, they're actually kind of lucky with 2 losses. They're even hosting a game when you consider how terrible of a loss that was to Michigan. But I understand some of the counter arguments, but that's kind of where I come down. Like, how about don't embarrass yourself against a shitty Michigan team? Pardon my French this early in the morning. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Yeah, the game gets more unbelievable the further we get away from it. A lot of times in sports, you can rationalize things. You can start to think, oh, this play would have gone that way and this play would have gone that way. When I keep looking back at the game, and I'm not doing it on purpose, it just kind of sits there in my skull. I don't have any answers for you people. I wish I did. I don't get it. And the more draft stuff, I'm a draft nerd, the more draft stuff I follow and they talk about, the 2 guys at the inside of Michigan makes me more and more angry. But slight digression. So as for Penn State and Ohio State and seeding, etc., I think it's pretty obvious that the committee was determined to maintain the integrity, and I air quote that heavily, the championship games, because in the past, that's been the last point of data, and it's had a major impact on seeding, and it just didn't. They just capped it. They basically just had the weekend was like a barrier. You got over the barrier, and those teams were going to be moved about, and then whatever, the playoff implications of the automatic seeds. But once you set up a program that goes away from being a pure meritocracy, meaning just seeding everyone, let's say 1 to 12, you're chasing your tail. You're never going to get it back to just value. So, it became a version of what should happen and what did happen. And Dave, we discussed this a lot beforehand. I really thought they weren't going to move up, not because they aren't better than Penn State, didn't beat them head to head. It's just there's no way. They expanded the tournament, and I get the feeling they made it clear to the commissioners or whatever. There was some handshake deal or something to maintain the integrity of the bowl games if they still were going to have them.
And they said, Dan, they said till they were blue in the face, they're like, we're not going to penalize a team for making its conference championship game. And I understood that. But I thought there was nuance in that. I thought they weren't talking about a Penn State team that didn't have any quality wins, backed its way into said conference championship game, got beat by 8. It wasn't like they got blown out. And then the one team that they would have a debate with also has 2 losses and beat them at their place. So it really, But they held true to their word. There was no interpretation with that. There was no nuance. It's like, we're not going to penalize a team that makes its conference championship game. But I think they needed to look deeper. Penn State had an easy Big Ten schedule except for one game. That was when they had to play Ohio State at their own place, and Ohio State bounced them. They barely got by Minnesota by a point. They barely got by Bowling Green. And again, I just come down to two things. I agree with you. Like, I'm not surprised by it. And, kind of, 1B on that is, again, don't lose to Michigan. So I understand it, and it doesn't surprise me, but geez, Ohio State by any metric should be ahead of Penn State.
I mean, I agree with you. I use Las Vegas as the true arbiter of the decision, and I believe Ohio State's third if you're on neutral field rankings right now. So Penn State isn't 1 or 2. So no, I don't think there's any argument that on a neutral field, Ohio State would be favored. It just comes back down to a goofy rule. Once you establish a goofy rule and abide by it, you can either cry to, howl at the moon or whatever. The team that got screwed the worst is Oregon. You go undefeated and you get a Tennessee or Ohio State in the first round when, Penn State's playing in the NIT. You know what I'm saying? That's not fair.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't. If you ask I'm sure I didn't hear the conference call. I was, I just had no interest in it actually. I'm sure their rationale is, well, we didn't want to get into we don't want this matchup. We just wanted it to be straight. Like, we thought SMU was 11th and Penn State was 6th, so that's what we were going to do. I'm surprised they didn't mix some things around. So what happened didn't happen, where Oregon basically gets screwed. And Joel Klatt, who, I'm not a huge fan of, but I also think he knows his stuff. He went off, and I agreed with him. I agree with Joel Klatt sometimes. He went off on Penn State getting this sweetheart of a draw, and Oregon, like you said, Dan, getting punished basically.
It's unfair. I mean, look, the NFL does it right. You should be seeded and then reseeded. If you're the best team, you should take the lowest seed of the game before. Now, I realize you can't do that with college athletics as much because of the travel requests, but then don't set up a goofy system. It's going to go back to the same thing. We could talk about this till we're blue in the face. It's going to go back to the fact that when you make an arbitrary system and just say, okay, we're taking 12 teams, top 4 conferences, get buys. Those conferences are in no way equal. They don't even play equal schedules, but we're going to do it. There is no way at that point, except for a broken clock is right twice a day, for it to be right. So it's not. It's blatantly unfair to Oregon. We got Ohio State getting Tennessee in the first round is a very tough matchup. But it's not. We didn't go, if we had gone undefeated and it was Oregon, Tennessee in the first round and we were waiting for them, we'd be pissed. Now, we'd be favored and yada, yada, but still, it's not fair.
Yeah, whereas even if Penn State, not only do they get to host SMU, and again, they could lose that game. None of these teams are bad. Arizona State is a good team. Okay, any of these teams can win, and there's not a juggernaut. But man, if Penn State wins, they get to play Boise in the quarterfinals. It's unbelievable. What are we doing? Boise is the number 3 seed in this thing, man, because we talked about all offseason. I wish I wasn't right. We're like, this has recipe for disaster. The example I used, the facetious example I used was like, what if Utah backs its way into the Big 12 championship game at 9-3 or something, and then they win, they're 10-3, and then they get a bye. That's not exactly what happened, but geez, you have Boise State and Arizona State getting a bye. I guarantee you next year they're going to change how they do the buys when you have Boise State and Arizona State getting buys.
Put it this way. Can you imagine if when we started the season, someone handed you this bracket and you'd be like, ha ha, seriously. And that's what it is. It's just not fair. I mean, there's really not that much else to say. Like I said, the system is goofy from the start. Now they get the chance to tweak it for sure. And generally, if you go by the big pundits, what their complaints are, they'll all favor Ohio State going forward. But still, it's just, Ohio State, they still are going to get their 8 o'clock kickoff and make their money off the brand. So we're going to do that for them. But there's really no way to unravel this. It's kind of like the game itself. Every layer you peel back, it just makes you more confused. So they have that in common. I mean, the game that we lost to Michigan.
Yeah. It'll be cool hosting a game. And I don't buy this stuff. I don't know why Herb Street had to go on there and be like, oh, I wonder if Ohio State fans are going to be booing throughout the game. It's like, why are you taking shots at Ohio State fans? Like Ohio State fans didn't have the right to boo during the Michigan game. They weren't booing, I don't think, the players. Even if they were, these players are getting paid now. I think they were probably booing the coach getting paid $10 million a year, and definitely the offensive coordinator that's over here, like he's like collecting a $2 million check, coaching like he's already retired. That's what they were booing. I don't need Kirk Herbstreit calling out Ohio State fans, wondering what the atmosphere is going to be like. Buckeye fans are going to get behind this team. There's no doubt about it. And they had every right to boo the worst offensive coaching performance I've ever seen in football. All right, moving on. Yeah, it's going to be cool hosting a game. So we had late breaking news yesterday. Devin Brown burning boats. No, I mean, he burned the boat. So now, I mean, he found another boat, I guess. He found a boat. He's leaving the program. I'd kind of like to see him stick around for the playoffs. But then again, I think it's time to turn the page anyway. This way, now if something happens with Will Howard, Julian Sand is your backup. I like that. And, you know, I mean, all signs are pointing, as we know, Dan. I mean, it has been for a while, that Julian Sand's likely going to be the starting quarterback next year. But interesting timing with Devin Brown leaving when he did. And now number 10, Julian Sand, waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I didn't know that Devin Brown was leaving the team. I thought he might be sticking around for the playoffs.
Maybe I'm wrong on that. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It did, regardless, it did spur this question to me.
My fault.
The timing of it was interesting. Keep in mind the transfer portal. The schedule has changed for this year. It opened today, I believe, and it goes through the 28th or the 29th. So that's the first run here. So, you know, he was just kind of making his intentions known. It does cause me to wonder if behind the scenes there was a clear change to Julian Sand as the number 2 quarterback. And that kind of solidified it. Or, you know, they may have gone to him and said, look, dude, had the look, dude conversation. Regardless, he's been a really good Buckeye since he's been here. Never really got a chance to get rolling in terms of his body kind of let him down in several situations. His big opportunities were struck by injury. So definitely expect him to go somewhere and get a shot. Clearly, we've seen what happens when quarterbacks leave here. They will get the chance to throw it around. So good dude, and I hope he goes somewhere and is really successful that's not in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Even if he does, so be it.
I'll be rooting for him. Yeah, as long as it's not at a certain school, I'll be rooting for him for sure. Yeah, and then
I don't think, to interrupt you, I don't think he's going to a certain school with Chase Herbstreit and Bryce Underwood both joining the fold up there. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those my bad, Devin Brown is staying for the playoffs. My bad, guys. I had a busy day yesterday and I missed that. All right. So yeah, I mean, people are mad that Herbstreit's son's going to Michigan. Like, he's basically a walk-on. Like, it's not like he's going there. I mean, not that it even matters anymore, scholarship walk-on, and Herbstreit's got more money than he'll ever know what to do with anyway. So it's kind of irrelevant, but like still, it's kind of, I've heard one of my friends was like, yeah, it's a troll move by Michigan. I was like, yeah, that's what it is. Basically a troll move by Michigan. I'm surprised Herbstreit's letting it happen. And of course he's taking a shot again. I can't believe he's taking shots at Ohio State fans of all days yesterday when his son's committing to Michigan. Like, you're going to take a shot at Ohio State fans for booing? Like, get out of here. Anyway, I don't fault Chase Herbstreit for going up there. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a troll move. My buddy's right. It's a troll move by Michigan.
It really doesn't make huge football difference. I'll just say that.
Right. Yeah. St. X was not quite the juggernaut this year with him at the control. He was a good high school quarterback. Don't get me wrong. It's not, if you're starting quarterback at St. X period, you're a good high school quarterback. You're talking about one of the powerhouse programs of our state.
Listen, they came to Dayton to induct his dad into the Centerville Hall of Fame and lit them up. So
yeah, and that ended up being a good Centerville team.
Very good.
Yeah, that's true. He was motivated for that one. All right, guys. I love daily fantasy, and Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action, and they have made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Sorry, guys, I just missed the read there a little bit. It just skipped on me there. Okay, here we go. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 200 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. All right, for example, tonight on Prize Picks, I'm looking at the Monday night football game between my Bengals and Dan's Cowboys. You throw out the records in a game like this, not because it's a rivalry, because their records suck, and Dan and I don't want to see them. But no,
the mean streets of Beaver Creek.
I'm telling you, man, we're the mean streets of Beaver Creek versus the mean streets of Oakwood. This is what it comes down to. So
someone might get a hangnail.
That's right. You got to get on Prize Picks, download the app. Okay, here's what I'm going with tonight. All right. Joe Burrow for more than 275 passing yards paired with Chase Brown for more than 1 touchdown. I also like another one. I like CD Lamb for more than 67 receiving yards against this awful Bengals defense. And I like Mike Gesicki for more than 25 receiving yards. He's become pretty much their #3 receiver. Join now.
I echo that bet. I don't want to interrupt you again, but I support your bet.
Yeah, I like both of them. And that's what you do with Prize Picks. You go more or less. You take 2 players. It's basically almost like, so it's a lot of fun. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. That's right, Picksmas. Download the app today. Use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Pretty good. Download the app today. Use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. There you go. So can they make a run? Go ahead.
We both commented, for those of you who think that Dave and I are actually getting into this game, Dave and I have exchanged texts, hoping giving good luck to the other team so they would win so we can get better draft position because both teams are effed. So don't think that Dave and I will be exchanging any angst. I'll be getting a sandwich from all the best deli here and enjoying my day and evening, regardless of the fact that if you have Bengals in fantasy, this is the night to play them. I hope you made smart decisions heading into the weekend.
One of my
this is playoffs in fantasy, isn't it?
Well, it depends. Most do start this week. Some start next week, but most do start this week. I run a league where we don't even have playoffs. We just give it to whoever has the best record because there's too much
old school,
too much luckiness that happens in the. You can have the number. If you have 8 teams that make the playoff, the 8 seed upsets the 1 seed, which I know that happens in real sports, but in fantasy sports, kind of mixing it up. Some leagues have playoffs. My league doesn't. By the way, I'm in my league. I have Burrow and Jamar Chase. That's been a pretty good tandem this year. That's been the only good thing about the Bengals this year is those two are putting up incredible numbers, and they still suck because coaching matters, guys. Coaching matters. You give the Steeler coaching staff the Bengals roster.
Oh Lord!
You give the Bengals coaching staff the Steelers roster. Those records flip. Trust me.
It's the his'n and using. He'll beat you with his'n and whoop you with using or something like that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways. I love that phrase. The one that I remember was, it's a football coach. I can take my team and beat your team, or I can take your team and beat my team. You got to say it with a Southern accent.
And using. Yep.
You got to say it with a Southern accent. I don't know why.
Y'all.
All right. Speaking of a Southern accent, can these Tennessee boys come on up here and beat these Buckeyes? I don't think so. No. They're a good team. They're a physical team. But Ohio State is favored by 7.5, which is about a third of what they're favored. No, I'm not going to go back there. I'm going to get over it. But no, seriously, I do think Ohio State's going to win this game. I haven't got knee deep into the matchup yet, but I've watched a good amount of Tennessee, so I have a good feel for them. They're a physical team. I called them earlier like the SEC version of Michigan, so that's like, oh, that's not what we want to hear. But I think Ohio State's going to come out, I hope. I really think they will, because we saw it against Georgia 2 years ago. I think they're going to come out a lot more loose. They were tight in the Michigan game. Now, Day says they weren't tight to begin with, and they got tight. At least he admitted they were tight. I don't know. I thought they were pretty tight from the get. Hopefully they come out loose. If they come out loose, they're going to be fine. If they don't turn the ball over, Mr. Rubin, right?
I mean, Dave says that in jest because that's been my thing and I still believe this. If Ohio State doesn't turn the ball over in any game, they'll win. But I'm done expecting. I've told you, can we just start a friggin' game with a 3-and-out and a touchdown, a 3-and-out and a touchdown? If you're up 14-0 and you're Ohio State, for example, against Michigan, the game would have been over.
With this defense, heck yeah.
Over.
Yep.
Over. So where is the kitchen sink, Dave? Where is the kitchen sink? That's my question. Where is the offensive creativity that we need? I don't understand that. And as it pertains to Tennessee, I too need to do my deep Tennessee dive, but I know that they have a defensive end, James Pierce, I believe his name is, who is going to be a high draft pick and maybe not great against the run, but he is one of those quick, twitchy, Abdul Carter-like edge rushers from the SEC who is good. The defensive line is obviously their strength. They have a running back that I've already eyed for the loser of tonight's Monday night game, who's rushed for over 1,400 yards. So
we got
Nico
Chase
Iamaleava,
Brown.
I don't know if you –
We got Chase Brown. We're good.
Yeah. See that, kids? It's a little back and forth here. And so, their quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, I don't even remember this. I really think he was the very first NIL quarterback. Remember, like Tennessee, he had offers from everybody. Nico Iamaleava was the most coveted quarterback for a certain period of time, meaning Ohio State, Alabama, et cetera, were in on it. USC, your standard quarterback factories, as it were, and he committed to Tennessee. And at the time I said, this is the first commitment that I think has been altered by cash. And it wasn't the last. We know that. So
didn't he come out? Maybe he didn't come out. Didn't something come out where it was basically like, yeah, I mean, no one had a problem with it. It's like, he's going to the highest bidder. And it was like, okay, yeah. I mean, it was legit. It wasn't like when Florida promised Jaden Rashida like all that money, and then that I can't remember if that was before or after that. That's the one that stuck up to me. And then, but Nico could have been right before then. But like Tennessee's money was legit apparently. But you're right; it didn't look like Nico was going to go there early in the process. And then it sounded like highest bidder's going to get him. Tennessee's like, here's a nice bag for you, not in a McDonald's bag. And yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. That will be looked back as the first real like big NIL transaction in college football. It's crazy how much college football has changed in just the last 3 years or so.
And Boise's the 3 seed, which is crazier than even that. So don't get me started. But yeah. So and I don't think he's been a program savior or anything like that. But he does have the ability. You know what I'm saying? So these games are always really interesting to me. These are like the old school bowl games, and that you get an extended period of time to prepare and plan and get healthy. It's almost like in the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, you play the first game and it's like a disciplined, structured game. And the second game is kind of crazy because you only had a little bit of time to prepare, right? And it's a little bit more just kind of toughness and stuff like that. That's why Izzo's so good on the second weekend. His record's ridiculous because those guys just play hard. You know what I mean? So effort is very important second week. The first week, Josh Heupel is going to pull the kitchen sink out for this. He is one of your offensive gurus, and I air quoted that. But we need to see us meet that creativity-wise. I mean, I don't want to get into the targets thing because that's the one that when I go back, I just don't get it. It's like having Shaq and not throwing the ball into the post. You would be vilified to a level of people. I don't want to go. I can't.
Or have Steph Curry and only throw the ball into the post.
Caffeine kicking in, and it's bringing the anger back to my skull. So
Did you hear me? It'd be like having Steph Curry, to use the opposite, it'd be like having Steph Curry and only throwing the ball into the post. It was insane. And here's the thing. I asked Ryan Day about it. I was like, I understand you guys wanted to establish the run. That's understandable, right? We were going to go in. Our defense is going to lock them down. We're going to establish someone. Not only are we going to beat Michigan, we're going to beat them at their own game. Fine. Not a good idea, but almost understandable. When that's not working and you don't adjust, that's terrible. I know you're going to say that's a bad idea. I agree.
It is. Dave, I'm not even going there. That's the problem.
The not adjusting was the word. I almost understand saying we're gonna win the rushing battle because you have to win the rushing battle to win the game. When it's proven you can't do it, then you have to adjust. They had no adjustments. No halftime adjustments at all.
Some guy just took out an account and started it up just to say we look alike. No good, Mr. Bucknuts. No, I don't agree with you. Michigan's 4 best players, 2 of them didn't play. The tight end and the defensive back. Right. They're by far their 2 best players are their defensive tackles. There's really no argument against this. They have the best defensive tackle tandem in the United States playing collegiate football by any measure, especially the NFL. And our plan was to go right at them. That is effing dumb. I don't care what you say about adjustments. You spent all week on that. Adjustments take halftime or the beginning of the game. They spent all week going over the film, making the plan, looking at their personnel, looking at Michigan and saying, you know what? That Mason Graham, let's get him. Do you know what? Graham and Grant probably turned to himself and were like, what is going on? We're going to win. I mean, that part, I will never get that part. When I spent, after I watched the Michigan guy get injured in warmups and get carted off, which I had never seen, it was a backup tight end apparently. No 18 on the sideline, conspicuously absent. Okay, he beat us last year, and I don't see. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's almost like I got to put that in a place where I don't think about it because I end up most of the things I can resolve in my brain. And I just spin myself into circles. I really do.
Makes no sense at all. It's like Chip Kelly was like I know he wasn't. It's like he was like, on the take or something. Because what's the one time they scored a touchdown? Right before halftime, they're throwing the ball. Ohio State's throwing the ball. Okay, they finally woke up. Despite everything, now they realize they were throwing, I think they ran the ball one time on that drive. They're showing tempo because they had to because it was a 2-minute drive. Score a touchdown. Okay, they now know you got to throw the ball. And they come out in the second half with no adjustments and keep trying to just bang their head against the wall. Tough conversation about Chip Kelly that we need to have because we are all guilty of talking him up like this was a good hire. We had a source in the boarding house on Friday had a very interesting note. It's our X's and O's expert that we quote sometimes. We both know him personally. We're not going to put his name out there unless he wants us to. And he sent in a note. He said, let's just be real about Chip Kelly. Yeah, at one point he was innovative. When he was an offensive coordinator at Oregon, when he took over at head coach at Oregon. He's never won anything. Jim Tressel outcoached him big time in the Rose Bowl. He did get to a national championship game at Oregon, managed to have a defensive struggle in that game because he called a terrible game against Auburn. Everybody was predicting that was going to be an absolute shootout. Cam Newton and Auburn against Oregon and Chip Kelly. Oh, geez, 50-45. And it was like, it was an absolute defensive struggle. Never won anything big. Went to the NFL, did have a 10-6, got to 10-6, and got to the playoffs his first year with the Eagles. Lost in the playoffs as a wild card. Next year, went 10-6, was actually pretty good. Didn't make the playoffs. 49ers, awful. UCLA, about 500. Never won anything. Chip Kelly's never won anything in his entire life that's big.
So first we'll say this. I was wrong. I really thought he'd be the difference. I thought when they won the national championship that Chip would get a ton of the credit. So believe it or not, Bucknutters, Dave and I are occasionally wrong. And by occasionally, I mean more than occasionally, but I digress. And look, he wasn't the first choice. The first choice is Coach Boston College. And I knew that at the time. That's one of those things that I knew and chose to not necessarily embrace.
Cognitive dissonance, Dan. Cognitive dissonance. Yep.
Called it's the nuts part of the Bucknuts. It's not the sane. It's not Buck's rational observer. It's not Buck's sane hosts. It's not Buck's. Come on. So I was wrong. And I thought the relationship the two had would be like the difference. But then I think back on it. Then why didn't he choose him first? If all that was true, why did he still want Bill O'Brien? Or maybe it hadn't come up. So maybe that's not justifiable. But it does call into question. Hafley just didn't want to. Yeah, I mean, Hafley, he's an interesting one. I think he's loving life now.
Oh, he is. Oh, gosh, for sure. He screwed us over twice, though. I mean, after 2019, he leaves. And then Ryan makes a very, very bad decision to hire Kerry Combs. Basically a recruiter and a DB coach to make him the defensive coordinator. It was like the second time Kerry talked to us for coming back. He's like, yeah, I'm not really a tactician. Not really much of an X's and O's guy. I'm like, you realize you're the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. You're not just like out there like yelling at the kicker and making funny comments that's going to go viral. Like when he called the kicker Sunshine the one time, and a lot of people thought it was funny. Some people got mad. It went pseudo viral. But that was just a horrible decision by Day. But Hafley caused that by leaving after 1 year. And then if Hafley doesn't leave Boston College, then we have Bill O'Brien instead of Chip Kelly. So Jeff Hafley.
There's no guarantee. I wanted to put this up here, Dave, because I have this question as well. It's from M. Barnyard. You want to read it?
Yeah, on the X. All right, on the X machine. He's also coaching with an unbelievably inept offensive line and an inept offensive line coach. It's like calling plays with one hand behind your back. That does not excuse what we saw against Michigan, in my opinion. Because if that's the case, then why are you using your weakness to run at their strength?
Look, I already made it clear how incredulous that was. Or I'm not sure if I used the word correctly there, but unbelievable. But if you try and reverse engineer this and think, okay, why did they do that? You need time to run more complicated plays downfield. And my guess is they just didn't trust the offensive line for the time. That's the only thing I can think of. Now, I don't agree with that. It wouldn't have been what I would have done. But when you try and reverse engineer how they could have come to this conclusion or approach, that has to be it. They just didn't want Howard to be under a tremendous amount of pressure. Because, Dave, I want to echo what you said before.
Yeah.
On that last drive of the first half, I cannot express to people, and how open dudes were. It wasn't like Will started, the light came on, he started fitting it in the tight windows. I'm talking like crossing routes in the middle of the field where the safety's 8 yards this way and the linebacker are 3 or 4 yards this way. Guys, nice toe tap and you're out. It looked almost like a 7-on-7 drill. So that makes it worse.
Yes.
It's not just that they didn't adjust. It's that the one time they did, it was like bing, ding, 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 touchdown. Let's go to the halftime, get some hot chocolate.
And then we come out after that. The one thing that worked, let's not go with that. Let's try to see if Mason Graham's the real deal. We sure Kenneth Grant can hold up. Like, yeah. And we sure our makeshift offensive line isn't actually really, really good. It's just, yeah, let's move on. Okay. Last Wednesday's press conference, I knew it was going to be interesting. It delivered. Took a while to get going. Too many. I know it was National Signing Day, and I think those young men deserve their due. I almost wish it was 2 separate press conferences, but it was like everybody wanted to know about the Michigan game because really the first time Ryan Day talked about it since it happened. Because the post-game press conferences, as you know too well, Dan, is really nothing. It's 5 minutes. I mean, the coaches, and any question you ask me is like, I got to watch the film first. So it was really our first chance getting a chance to talk with him. So many interesting things. I want to ask you about talk about the offensive line situation. They're definitely going to make changes on the offensive line, reading between the lines there. My guess is Josh Padilla is going to take over at center. Redshirt freshman from Wayne, right there in your current neck of the woods, my former neck of the woods. Wayne's been a very good program to the Buckeyes over the years. I think he's going to take over at center. I think they're going to kick Hinsman to guard. Cyberveld go to right guard, meaning Hinsman to left guard. And I think Tegra is probably headed for the bench. It's my guess. Ooh. He's been grading out terribly. I know people are like, PFF. Okay. He's been grading out horribly, according to PFF.
He blocks the wrong guy too much. I don't have to tell you.
That's not good. Or just blocks nobody like he did him against Michigan one play.
That's the wrong guy. Air is not the assignment.
Air Noland or just Air itself.
I don't have a good one on Tegra. He's had some games, like unfortunately, I had done a deep dive on the offensive line on the Nebraska game. We had those troubles, and he was awful. He did rebound, though, and had some very good games. And I'll say this, what I've always said about him, when he blocks the right guy and when he executes, he's good. He's enormous, and he's strong. He's just not assignment sound based on what I have seen. If someone knows better than me, who's got better access to film and calls, I would agree with that. Darren Dorsey, listen, man, you don't got to tell me. I said this last year. People think I'm crazy. This is what I would do if I was the Buckeyes and I had all the money in the world. You know what they call Bill Callahan in Dallas? Running game Jesus. Because he will fix your running game, dude.
Go look at Bill. Son of the head coach, though.
I know, and that's why we didn't get him.
Yeah.
He was with the Browns last year, and I thought we could just move him right in. And his son had to go all achieving nepotism style on me and get a head coaching job. But you want an offensive line coach? Get me running game Jesus.
By the way, every Bengals fan knew that will work. Hired by the Titans, getting Brian Callahan, who wasn't even really the offensive coordinator, dude. Zach Taylor's really the offensive coordinator. You're getting Zach Taylor's underling. You think that's a good idea? You're getting Zach Taylor Jr. as your head coach. I don't know why the Titans thought that was a good idea, but they did. Any Bengals fan could have told you that was not going to work out well.
There's a question there. Will Bill Callahan leave his son? I do not think he will.
No.
But I'm telling you, that's
college.
That's another thing I would do, and this is completely off track. We can't be letting little things is a very poor way of saying that. One-off, for example, go get the best offensive line coach. Then go get the best kicker. Okay? This idea of building this massive organization, and I'm not going to make the money call, even though everyone else talks about it, to then not be the best at one-off positions where you could just overpay. It's like I never understood why the Patriots wouldn't have paid. Like Belichick just give whatever he wants at the time. If it's a guarantee to win the Super Bowl, it's worth it. If you have $100 million payroll, pay the guy whatever. So that's one thing going forward that they need to do is they need to sit down, honestly assess the whole thing and just be like, look, if this is going to be a money game, we are going to fix these problems now with money and then build structurally correctly. But we need to play to our strengths. And one of them is Cache.
Great stuff from Dan Rubin. Appreciate it, Dan. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And if you're still with me, I want to let you guys know about Factor. I love Factor meals. I've been telling the story. So work with a friend of mine over at 97.1 The Fan here in town. He loves to make these microwave meals. Every time I'm home co-hosting a show with him. And these are the old school frozen microwave meals. So I'm like, I turned him on to Factor. And he likes eating like healthy, like good food. So it's like perfect for him. And now, he didn't even like know this existed. So instead of these old school microwave meals that we've been talking about, frozen, and he's now getting fresh meals. We have a refrigerator there at the station. He's able to now make, filet mignon, blackened salmon, all kinds of good stuff. That chicken and mushroom dish that I like. Got to get him some smoothies too. Factor's fantastic. So it arrives at your door fresh. You pop the boxes into your fridge. And then when you want to make them, they're ready in 2 minutes in your microwave. And again, it's high quality food. It tastes great. And it's ready in 2 minutes. I love it. Then there's no prep, no cleaning up. It's fantastic. So I'm spreading the word, my friends. Head to factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 and use the code Bucknuts50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code Bucknuts50 at factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Thanks again to Dan Rubin. Thanks to all of you. We appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.